Hi y'all. It is currently 5:40 in the morning and I have not been able to sleep. And so when I can't sleep, I do what is um, sort of my go-to, which is I start to do things from my to-do list. And one of the things that was high on my to-do list was to make a YouTube video. So recently I've been getting a lot of messages and emails, and not even recently, but over a time span, I've gotten a lot of emails and messages and comments under my video about Saint Martha, and people have been asking me to make a part two. So this is the part two. So first of all, to go back and correct some things that were said in the earlier video, because I rewatched that and don't bring up the past, but if you want to go back and rewatch it, please go back and rewatch it. So, um, for those of you that don't know, since I was maybe about 15 or 16, I've been doing spiritual work and I've been making YouTube videos. And ever since then, I have worked with Saint Martha the Dominator. This is my statue of Saint Martha the Dominator. Um, Saint Martha the Dominator is also known as Mami Wata. She is the subduer of men and spirits. A lot of times you see her specifically venerated by women. We're going to talk about that. Her day is Tuesday. Her color is green. Some people use purple, considering that she is a spirit of domination and control. And her most preferred offering is a candle, a cigar, and maybe a glass of rum, depending on what you're doing with the spirit. So, before I start this video, I would like to say to everyone that is considering working with Mami Wata, Saint Martha, if you are considering specifically working with Saint Martha, the Dominator, I'm going to tell you that Saint Martha, in all her aspects, is a very regimented and strict spirit. You don't begin working with Saint Martha and then stop. You know what I'm saying? Like every Tuesday, even when I'm not doing big ritual or big prayer, manifestation work with Saint Martha, I'm still making an offering. Look, all you can see is Saint Martha's baby right here. Okay, so as I stated in my first video, most times when you see a depiction of Saint Martha, you will see Saint Martha holding a snake with a child and a snake at her feet. And the story of that, as I explained in my earlier video, is St. Martha was in a cemetery visiting her father, who was the baron of that cemetery. And while she was visiting that baron, she heard a cry from a child who was also in the cemetery. Coming from a long line of warriors and magicians, people that help and heal spiritually. She ran to the aid of the screaming child to find that the child was being attacked by snakes. She fended off the snakes, and then she asked the child what the child was doing in the cemetery, and the child informed her that he was orphaned, and she took the child as her own and took care of him and raised him. So that's why we see the depiction of snakes. Another reference to that is Mami Wata is a goddess of water who is sometimes represented as a half snake, half woman. And I sometimes like to think about the snakes not only as fertility symbols, but aren't those just things that we need to control in our lives? Sometimes you just gotta grab the snake by the head. That's how you really gain control over it. Anyway, so Tuesday is her feast day, which I kind of find a very potent type of reminder of what type of deity, what type of saint she is, because Tuesday is ruled by the planet Mars, it kind of tells you that she has a very aggressive, very forward approach to things. Um, it also tells you that she can be very direct. Um, a lot of people use her for love work, use her for fidelity and work and honesty, overcoming a lot of different obstacles, prosperity, all of those things. When it comes to working with Mami Wata, there are three things that I always ask myself before I take it to her. First of all, this is a no bullshit type of saint. Excuse my language, but that's what she is. Don't come to her with no foolishness. If you come to her about a man and you knew the man wasn't good when you got with him, don't expect St. Martha to help you with it. If you come to her about financial situations and you knew that you was way over your head when you got into the investment or when you got the car or the house or whatever it was, don't come to her about that. Um, if you're at a job that you don't like and you know you don't like it, and I've had this happen to me, and you beseech, you make affirmation or prayer to Saint Martha and ask her to help you control the situation, Saint Martha will not touch that. But Saint Martha, when you have gone through every other means, and when you have been diligent in your looking and your understanding and trying to find the answer, Saint Martha is there as a very last resort. Okay? That's the first thing I want to say about Saint Martha. She is a no bullshit type of spirit. Don't come to her with that. The next thing I want to tell you is that, like I said earlier, Saint Martha is not a saint that you pick up and put down. A lot of people have a tendency to go from saint to saint until they get an affirmation or a prayer granted. I just want a little bit more meat in the camera. Um, they have a tendency to go from person to person. I mean, saint to saint until, or I mean, person to person, saint to saint, spirit to spirit until they have an affirmation granted. Saint Martha is about diligence. She is about continued effort, and she is about devotion. If you ever look up a prayer to Saint Martha, or if you ever, one of my favorite prayers to Saint Martha actually states in the prayer that every Tuesday I'm lighting a candle to you in honor of you. And so even if you have to go to Walmart and get 100 pack of tea lights and burn tea lights for her, you can get 100 pack of tea lights for like $2.50. Go to Walmart, get that, and set a tea light out for her every day. And that's what she likes. You know, as long as you continue on the daily devotional path, she will answer and respond to prayers. So, Saint Martha, the subduer of men and spirits, is a very good spirit for, I mean, you name any life struggle that you might want to overcome, or you might need subdued, or that you might need brought to your feet, she can do it for you. But the thing about that is as I stated earlier, you have to show diligence in that process. So, for example, you've gone through all the, like I said, you've gone through all the practical means. So let's say relationships. That's what she's most commonly invoked for. A lot of women particularly invoke Saint Martha, and I still have to talk about that. Invoke Saint Martha for domination over men that they feel might be unfaithful. So before you go to Saint Martha, this is the practical advice. Have you discussed the possibility of your partner cheating with them? Have you gone to counseling? Have you tried to debunk any theories that you've had? If you've done all three of those things, or any other practical way of working through the situation and have saw no resolve, you can now go to Saint Martha. Saint Martha will take that situation into her hands. Now, like I said, she's a very, very straightforward spirit, okay? If you go to St. Martha with a situation like that, be prepared to deal with whatever the fallout is from that situation. You may find out that he was cheating. He may, you know, you also have to, the spirit works in mysterious ways. So you're going to find it out in a way that you may not be accustomed to wanting to find it out. You may be made aware of that in a manner that is a little bit more aggressive. But like I said, her day is Tuesday for a reason. She's a no bullshit type of saint for a reason. She will bring it to you truthfully and honestly. She is, I don't even know how to describe how much love I have for this saint. And I think that I kind of need to loosen up right now because there's a part of me that wants to make this video very scholarly, which I can do. But then there's another part of me that just has so much love and devotion to this saint because of what she has done for me. And a lot of people, when you work with St. Martha, will tell you that St. Martha is not for men. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. Now, in terms of my devotion to St. Martha, like I said, I've been working with St. Martha since I was in high school. I didn't buy my first St. Martha statue until I was maybe I was fresh out of high school, so maybe 17 or 18. And even then I was very hesitant about inviting her physical presence into my home and giving her a shrine in a space because of all that I had heard in terms of, St. Martha is not for men. She's pure. Most times she's invoked to dominate and control men, so I don't see this working out with you. These were all things that I heard in candle shops and in spiritual shops around town. But the thing about it is, and this is a piece of advice that goes for any veneration or any spiritual practice, you have to listen to your spirit and what your spirit says for you, to you. I have a very strong connection to the women and the matriarchs of my family. And that being said, when it came to working with St. Martha, I saw no issue in pulling out her statue, or not pulling out, but buying her statue and understanding my respect for women, also understanding my respect for her. I felt as if we had had a good relationship and to build from there. And building from there, I knew that I was going to have to pass a lot of tests. St. Martha is very used to being cheated on. One of the myths go that the reason St. Martha dominates men is because she had an unfaithful lover and her unfaithful lover left her. So that's why she kind of hears for the plight of women who have been cheated on or have been cheated on or been done wrong by men. But the thing about that is that as a gay man or as a same gender loving man or whatever the term you want to apply to that situation, I know what it's like to be done dirty by a man, and me and St. Martha have had those conversations too. I know that sounds crazy, but when you talk to your saints, they do talk back to you. And so that being said, I completely understood. And I think that as I worked more with St. Martha and I did certain things women always have the highest respect in my eyes. That comes from not only my upbringing, but it also comes from my working with the spirits, because I have a very feminine spiritual court. As the reading once said, a lot of the ancestors in my family, a lot of the ancestors that watch over me are females, and I have a couple of male ancestors around me. So that being said, I just really have always held a high energy and a high respect for women. And that being said, whenever you work with St. Martha, this advice specifically towards males, if you choose to invoke St. Martha, make sure that you're doing it for an authentic reason and it doesn't seem like it'll benefit you purely from a masculine, manly energy. Another thing about Saint Martha is that when it comes to domination work, justice is sort of her thing. So yes, she can dominate, but no, it's not going to work, or it may not work the way you want it to, if the situation is not of just cause, if you understand what I'm saying. If you just want to dominate somebody with no cause or reason just because you want to have control and mastery over them, that's not going to work. But if somebody is causing you real strife and worry, and they're causing you real hurt, Saint Martha is all here for that, and she's here to hear that situation as well. Um, Now, I kind of talked about Saint Martha the Dominator and Saint Martha as Mami Wata, which are the most common connections that you'll hear about her in the ATR and the African American spiritual background. But another thing about it is that Saint Martha has been venerated through a plethora of different American cultures in a plethora of different ways. Of course, if we break down Saint Martha, we have Saint Martha the Dominator, we have Mami Wata, we have Saint Martha la Bruja, Saint Martha the Witch. We have there's another Saint Martha veneration that I really don't know too much about, and I can't remember her name right now. That means that I'm not meant to speak on it. Don't speak on things on which you do not know. But Saint Martha has a plethora of different masks, and when you start to really unravel those masks, you'll start to find different things about her aspect and working with her that might more coincide with your spiritual beliefs and your spiritual practices. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ritual work with Saint Martha. As I spoke on earlier, Saint Martha is sort of a saint of devotion, and you kind of see that a little bit in the biblical references to Saint Martha, because the biblical references talk about how Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were all related. Okay, and so when Lazarus died, Mary sent word to Jesus and his disciples. Jesus and his disciples traveled to this town, and I've read this story so many times in so many different versions of the Bible. The Gnostic Bible, the King James, the New Revised Living, all of that. But the story pretty much goes the same as I just laid out for you. Mary, Martha, Lazarus were all related. Lazarus had passed away. Lazarus was sick and dying, and Mary had sent word to Jesus, knowing that Jesus could heal Lazarus. But by the time Jesus had gotten to their city, Lazarus had already died. I don't remember how long he had been dead for. I'm not gonna say I don't know, but I don't remember. And so Jesus told Mary and Martha not to cry, and he asked um he asked Mary and Martha he asked Mary specifically to show him to the tomb of Lazarus. And that was sort of kind of it. But you kind of get this overtone from other stories preceding that because Martha is mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament, maybe like 2 or 3. But when I say 2 or 3, I don't mean in the whole Old Testament, because she's mentioned numerous times in the Old Testament. Specifically, they tell the same story over and over again. Jesus was lodged at the house of Lazarus and Mary and Martha made food and cleaned and cooked after Jesus and the disciples that stayed in the house with them. And so from that, we kind of also get this energy that Martha is very good about cleaning and keeping house. Okay, if there's something that's not in your house, that's not supposed to be there, Mary will get it out. That's sort of one of her other reasons that snakes are sort of depicted here. We're not supposed to have snakes in the house. Snakes represent, Snakes represent the devil. They represent mischief. They represent, on a negative scale, they represent all of those things. So we have to, clean those out of the house. Anyway, um, Martha is considered to be very diligent about the task of keeping house and keeping house clean. So when it comes to doing ritual work with her, devotion is very important. Um, Daily prayer, not daily, weekly, daily, never monthly. If you can do weekly, if you can do daily, the better. But weekly is okay. Never put off, don't pray to her once a month. That's a timer going off. Um, I'm gonna finish this and then I'll shut that off. When it comes to doing that type of work, make sure that you're praying daily, because I've always said it's better to pray daily and be in her good favor when you need something than have to build up a rapport. That way, when you come to her with an affirmation, she will turn you away and be like, "Who are you?" Um, Pray the same prayer, make the same offering, always. So this is sort of like a part two. I just kind of wanted to go back and maybe address some things that I didn't talk about or correct some things that I did talk about. And if there are any more questions, leave them in the comments. I will respond. Thank you so much for watching this video, and everybody have a wonderful day.